Hey everybody. Today we're diving into a topic that has been on my mind for a long time and I haven't really spoken very much about. So it's imposter syndrome, and I think we need to have an honest conversation about it today. So whether you're a teacher in graduate school or you're a new teacher in a new school district or a new assistant professor or adjunct professor at a university, you're new to these spaces, or gosh, frankly, if you've been around for a while, you might still be feeling this in academia or in graduate school, this imposter syndrome. So I'm going to talk about this from a couple different angles, and we're just going to like dive right in. So let's go. I want to just say that if you stay listening, watching all the way to the end, I'm going to give a few tips for dealing with or treating, if we want to think about it as a medical model, uh, navigating imposter syndrome. So we'll talk about that at the end. So first up, what exactly is imposter syndrome? Well, definition, for me, I think about it, it's just not feeling that you are competent or capable as others might perceive you to be. It could also be the worry that someone might not be perceiving you as competent, and you don't believe that you are. I think it also has something to do with people who are feeling imposter syndrome might also think that they're a fraud or afraid that someone will eventually expose them as such. And that has everything to do with belonging or not feeling like you belong, or having this narrative or story in your head that you don't belong, or maybe there's someone who's not making you feel welcome. That could be part of it too. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about why I think imposter syndrome is contagious. So it often stems from the environment that we're in. When we're surrounded by high achievers, or people who are perceived to be high achievers, or people who are perceived to have all the answers, there's pressure to excel. There's pressure to compare ourselves to others, and all of that can intensify our feelings of imposter syndrome. And that is feelings of inadequacy, frankly. Those are some of the senses that we might be having. So this creates sort of a cycle where everyone feels like they're not good enough, even though they're all super successful. And this is really common, I think, in graduate programs where, um, especially a new graduate program where everyone's showing up PhD, or there's a new group of faculty members starting their assistantship, kind of all starting at the same time, or a new group of teachers starting at the school. So I think like the key here is that everyone is sort of starting and looking kind of to each other to see, are you better than me? Do you have more experience than me? Do you think you know what you're doing? Who knows what they're doing? I'm doing, and you start kind of having these whispers of doubt. So I think it can be contagious when you feed off of each other in that way, and sort of um, just acknowledging like we're all new here, and we have a range of capacities and expertise. So let's kind of help each other out here. Be honest about how we're feeling and move forward. This is hard to do when you have an imposter syndrome, and you don't feel like you belong. So it's hard to kind of be really vulnerable and speak how you're feeling. So let's talk a little bit about why this happens, or how this happens in graduate school. So if you watch some of my other videos, you know that I was a social worker first years, and then I became a junior high teacher for 15 years. While I was in my junior high teaching experiences, I was working on my PhD. And so I got that like 10 years ago, I think. And this is starting my 6th year as an associate professor in higher education. So I've been, in several graduate programs, and I've had started new jobs and things like that. So I am the queen of understanding being new and having imposter syndrome, and not wondering if I belong or not, especially when I went from teaching junior high to like showing up and teaching night classes of students, and having to kind of show that I belong there, showing that I have something to add, value added to the program and to the instruction here. So let's say, graduate students in particular will feel this imposter syndrome because it is a time of intense learning and environment and development. So you're going because you want to learn something new, you're starting a new program. You're going to be learning a lot of things that are unfamiliar, especially as a teacher when you are sort of the master of your content. And then you're going into these spaces, trying to connections to what you already know. But there's a lot of new content and you might feel like, should I know this? This person knows this. How come I didn't know this? And lots of that comparing again, right? So for many teachers, it's their first experience in a highly competitive or scholarly environment. And not all the professors make you feel welcome. So they might be like really holding up this a high bar, or being intimidating to you on purpose to show you that this is very rigorous and not everyone can be successful. So there's some of those kind of things. Your colleagues, your professors, any of you might be questioning your expertise and worrying about being judged by peers and mentors. And really honestly, this is part of it. We're all being judged and judging others because it feels really highly competitive, and that's has a lot to do with the of the school that you're in. So hopefully you're in a lovely place in graduate school where that's not happening to you. I do my best as a professor to try to make it welcoming and supportive, but not everyone does that. So that's kind of why it's intensified in graduate school. So similarly, new tenure track faculty often experience imposter syndrome. So I'll do a video about this, but tenure track means, you're hired as a professor at a university with the understanding that you will be teaching and doing research and doing service to develop and propel your career for the university, and eventually get tenure or more stability and freedom and choices in your research. So there's this idea that you have a long-term commitment with that. That's when we talk about tenure track, that's really what we're talking about. So that is a long commitment. I came in feeling imposter syndrome because I finished my PhD. I stayed in the junior high classroom a lot longer. I had done a lot of writing, but I had not done a lot of like qualitative research. I hadn't earned a lot of grant money or anything. Like there were all these things I didn't do that I couldn't do. And I was focusing on my gaps. I wasn't focusing on my assets or what I could contribute. So I was very worried about that. And that's where imposter syndrome kind of got the better of me. My first couple months, gosh, my first couple years, oh my gosh, I still feel imposter syndrome, even though I'm starting my 6th year. So even though I had these great qualifications, I had my PhD, I had a lot of publications, I had a lot of presentations. I'm trying to talk myself into why I shouldn't have had imposter syndrome, and yet I did. And yet I was still concerned about all the things I had yet to learn, and that's actually the heart of imposter syndrome, because it's a mind shift from I don't know everything, I don't belong here, to I don't know everything, I belong here to learn. I'm here to figure things out. I'm here to be a part of a community and to collaborate with others to make and do and create some wonderful and find out some good stuff together. And you're not know and be able to do it all alone. At least that was my experience. So if you're feeling imposter syndrome in graduate school or as a new university professorship, it really is probably something that you've been feeling in a few different aspects of your life. As I mentioned earlier, I felt imposter syndrome just, as an Aikman, that was my family name. With so many siblings, I always felt like I wasn't sure that I belonged. I have felt that way when I was with my friends, growing up with my friend group. I wasn't sure um, that I belonged in the group, in the friend group, So imposter syndrome is just part of life. It's other people have been feeling it. It's not limited to academia. It's not limited to high achieving individuals. Many people feel this at various stages of their career, at various stages of their life. And it's really important to recognize that they're normal. Feeling like an imposter is normal. And this can be managed. I think there might be some solutions that we can come to together. Okay, well, like most things, um, the first step is naming it. This is imposter syndrome. This is how I'm feeling. Or maybe there's some symptoms of it that you might be feeling as well. And just be vulnerable to name it, to acknowledge it, to talk. acknowledging your feelings, recognizing, validating your emotions, understanding that imposter syndrome is common and it doesn't really reflect your true abilities. Um, you're much more than the self, these whispers of doubt that you're surfacing and that you're giving energy to. Number two, so we're talking about, dealing with, this is the end of the video. Thank you for being here. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, you could do that now, but we're at the end of the video. So I'm trying to give you some ideas, but of course, feel free to jump into the comments and tell me your own experiences or your own suggestions. So the first is to acknowledge it. I talked about that. The second is to celebrate your achievements. So this is hard for teachers to do. We're humble, modest. We don't want to talk about things that we've done, that we've achieved. So just do it for yourself. So take some time to reflect on your accomplishments. Remind yourself of the hard work that you've gotten here. You might want to make even a little map, like just your journey to get to this part. You start at the beginning of your teaching career. Note the people and the places and the moments that were significant for you. I think if you do this exercise of creating your map of your journey, you'll see the road and the events and the accomplishments that have gotten you here. You can own it, you can see it, you can celebrate it, and that's a really important step to do. Who knows, maybe your professor will ask you to create such a map. The number three is to seek support. Talking to mentors, peers, friends, me, in the chat, in the comment section, in the YouTube channel, on social media, through email. Feel free to reach out to me. Your friends, your family, your loved ones, they can all provide some perspective and reassurance for you. I found that my loved ones were great. They had a lot of encouragement for me. For whatever reason, their validation wasn't enough. I needed to hear it from my peers. I needed to hear it from my professors. I needed to hear it from the journal editors who accepted my papers. I needed it behind not just people who knew me personally, but people who knew me professionally. So find those people. It costs us nothing to lift one another up. So ask someone to lift you up and then reciprocate by lifting them. Hopefully this will get you where you need to go and help you with some of your imposter syndrome. Number four, and there's just 5 of them here, is to set some realistic goals. So focus on achievable goals or understanding that perfection is not the goal. It's not required. Progress, learning, development. This is what we're doing here in our graduate program, in our tenure track teaching position. The progress is what also recognizing this progress is really important too. So maybe some small goals, and that might just be, finishing a paper and having a conference with your professor or doing some peer editing with a colleague. It might be proposing a new research project, not necessarily finishing it or receiving a grant. It might be as simple as reaching out to me and saying you'd like to write a blog post for ethical ELA, and that will feel really great. It's a super short bit of writing, but you might get some writing under your belt and feel good about that sort of thing. Reach out to a mentor and ask if you can be a part of their next research project or join in on some analysis of data. Any of those small things where you feel like you're getting involved and taking an initiative toward learning and toward development. And the more that you can reach out and network, the more your imposter syndrome will be assuaged. And finally, and this is not my favorite because you maybe watched my video last week when I was saying I'm not a big fan of this term, self-care, but engage in activities that boost your well-being and help manage any stress that you're feeling. So for me, my work and my life are all one thing. The stress sometimes makes me feel good. I like having lots of things on my plate and ideas and opportunities for my brain to create and to try new things and to collaborate. All of my projects are really collaborative projects, teachers and scholars. This is part of my self-care because I'm not doing it alone. Maybe I should say that again. I'm not doing any of my projects alone. So I can't really be an imposter when I'm part of a team. And I think that's one of the keys that we want to be thinking about. You might also have other hobbies or exercise or mindfulness practices that you do. It might just be setting aside dinner time or with your loved one, going to sporting events of your kids, carving time to do those things is going to be really helpful and remind you of all these other places and people that love you just as you are. And you're not going to be comparing uh, your, I don't know, your paper or your discussion or your comment during some class, graduate class that you had, uh, or your CV and you just want to be around people where you don't feel like you're comparing. And a break from that is kind of helpful. It gives you some perspective. So here we are at the end. Thanks for being with us so far. I feel like imposter syndrome has been a burden for me, and just talking about it with you has been a little bit of a relief just to name it. It's something many people experience. It's something that a lot of graduate and academia people feel all the time, just finding fields where there's a lot of pressure or perceived pressure to do really well, to be liked by your students, to be published, all of those different things. But I think just acknowledging things, acknowledging um, all of your accomplishments and who you are, and all the things that you've done for education already, maybe using some of the strategies I've offered. These can help. This can help assuage that imposter syndrome. So, if you found this helpful, please like it. If you want to take a look at my other video about how I tried work-life balance and failed miserably, you can find that video in the discussion notes below. So, watching, and I guess see you next time.